Game is at 1:07. It is on altitude. It is obviously right here. Coach Eck is it's a Big Sky school.
Is it on the Mountain West app as well?
Yes, it's on the Mountain West Network. So if you have the Mountain West app, it's free there. It's on altitude, over the air. Robert Portnoy and Dontrell Moore are the announcers for that one. Gates will open, I think it's 90 minutes before the game starts. And Coach Eck is 18-6 against Big Sky opponents. When he was at Idaho, he was 3-0 against Idaho State.
Thanks for those tidbits there. Thanks for coming out today. Excited to get our home season kicked off. Was proud, again, our effort. I thought our toughness we played with at Michigan, but there certainly is a lot of things that I saw on tape that we can coach better and we can play better, and we got to make some big progress cleaning those up. I was disappointed. I thought a lot of our errors in that game weren't necessarily, just related to Michigan being incredible. They had the 2 long touchdown runs where they didn't have to break a tackle. We weren't in the right position to be there. We had some times in protection where it wasn't that they defeated a blocker. We counted it wrong, and now they're hitting Jack untouched and not blocked where they should have been blocked. And that's stuff that can get you beat against anybody on your schedule, let alone against a team like Michigan. So hoping to make a lot of progress. I think Cody Hawkins is a very good football coach. They've done a good job. I thought improved at Idaho State each of the last couple of years, and I thought that was really impressive how they went and played UNLV. I think they probably ran into what I'm concerned about with our players this week is, I've never got so many congratulations over a 17-point loss. And I think that's because our culture of winning football here is not very good. So people are excited by really not the best performance. And I bet that happened to Idaho State because they don't have a great culture of winning either. So when they play UNLV to 7 points, I'm sure people treated their players like they won the game, which they did not, and now they don't play nearly as well last week and get beat by Southern Utah. So we got to guard against that. We got to have our best week of preparation. Again, I want to make sure we're putting on a good show because I'm hoping we get a good crowd in here. I'm hoping we can get 25,000 people in here to support us with all the things that we've done, and I want to make sure we put on a good show so they want to come back after they come.
Is that more encouraging when you pull up the tape and you look at it like, hey, these were execution issues on our end. It wasn't just, Michigan kind of, being that incredible.
It's both. It's frustrating because it's stuff that, if we would have coached better, if I would have coached better, we could have done a better job. But it's also, I think, a lot easier to fix than, it's really tough if all of a sudden, there's no waiver wire in football. If you're, certainly the problem was not that our players are not good enough or anything. We had a lot of good players. We got to coach them right and put them in the best position. So there's certainly, I think everything that we screwed up in that game, it was easily correctable. Maybe a few freak things like, they're longs, like the tipped up pass. You're going to have that probably more against a team who's really long and athletic, and that was a great play by the catch to make a one-handed catch with the D lineman. I don't know if a lot of the D linemen in our league are that athletic, but, I think we got to coach our guys up better too. If it's a tip pass, our O-lineman and quarterback's got to try to bat it down.
And on the note of Idaho State, of course, you've had experience going up against, Coach Hawkins and all that too. What are you seeing out of them at this point? Well,
I think their quarterback's very good. I got to coach against them last year. We got to get some pressure on him and try to get him to turn over the ball because that's probably been one nemesis is he has shown that he'll turn over the ball if you put pressure on them. I was disappointed. To beat Michigan, you got to create some turnovers defensively, and we did not. We just got the one on special teams. So we need to create some turnovers. I think they are, -3 on the year in turnover margin. We're -2 after one game. So I think that'll be a key battle in this football game. And we still got to do a decent job against the run. I thought that was a difference. They really were able to bleed some rushing yards against UNLV that Southern Utah did a really good job of stopping their run game and just making them one-dimensional, throwing it. And then their defense is brand new. They've changed coordinators from last year. So that's a little new, and they give some multiple looks. We got to make sure we have sound plays against everything they do because they'll give us some, 5-man more odd fronts. They'll give us some 4-man even fronts. They'll give us single high. They'll give us 2 high. They really do quite a bit on defense. We got to make sure we have answers to whatever they're doing.
So I thought this would be kind of like a wet blanket kind of question, but you mentioned in your opening, so I don't feel as bad. You guys did lose by 17, and everyone's kind of treating it like a big victory. What specifically do you guys do to sort of remind your team that, you didn't win, that it wasn't a victory?
We've brought it up a lot. We brought it up in our team meeting yesterday. You'll bring it up in our team meeting today, and, we got to have a great week of practice. Again, we got a lot of work to do now. I think to me, it shows what potential we have, that we can go in there to Michigan and not play great, lose the turnover margin, 3-1, and, not have it be a game where we're, lose by 50 or something. But, there were some things we did well. I liked the toughness of our team. I thought we fought, and I thought we were disciplined. We didn't have a lot of foolish penalties, which was good, but we had some other mental errors that weren't penalties that we got to correct. So we got to stay on them. We got to coach them better. A lot of things I think we can coach better too.
And then a lot has been made about the toughness of Jack Lane, which I imagine you probably already had a sense of that. You probably didn't want everyone to find out the way they found out.
No.
What do you got to do to not have that be a theme all year, that he's so tough? Look at all the hits he takes.
We got to protect him better. We got to protect him better. I'd say most of the hits were on the offensive line. We had a few. There was one at the end of the game, and sometimes when you get hit a lot, you start looking at the rush. I think the last sack of the game, or the second to last sack, on a fourth down stop, it was a free rusher. So that was one where we didn't have enough guys, and you should have thrown hot to Dorian, and we could have got a first down on it. So some of the hits are on him as well, but we got to be better. We got to be better with the O-line, be better with our game plan. We got to run the ball better. We threw it much more than we would like to against anybody, let alone a team like Michigan. But I'm looking for that group to make a big step up this week.
Going against a nationally ranked team, your team was very confident, and on top of that, your players, they were talking their smack throughout the game. And where does that bravado come from, and how did you view that?
Well, I think building confidence in your team is one of my biggest jobs, and building belief. And I think we did go in there believing we could win. And the other thing we talked about is just how we were going to respond when adversity happened. And I was really, really happy with that, because I was a little nervous, to tell you, but when we got down 14-0 that fast, I got nervous that maybe guys were, all the belief was going to drain out. But we hung in there. I thought it was really a huge stop when our defense, after the turnover where the kid made the great one-handed interception, that we held them to 3. That was, I thought, a really gutsy stop that said a lot about our team. And even the last 2 drives, because they weren't just running fullback dives down the game. I mean, they were throwing the ball. They went for it on fourth down, and for us to get 2 straight stops, I think a 3-and-out and a 4-and-out, showed that we were playing our ass off to the end. So I was very pleased with that. The belief, the toughness, the grit our team showed, very happy with. We got to get better at the stuff that really wins games, though, the execution. And I thought there were some times we could have played a little harder. There were some great hustle plays, like Frankie Edwards' effort to run down that ball carrier and tackle at the 1. I mean, that's as good as it gets with effort. But there were some other times where we weren't running the ball quite as good.
Thank you, Coach.
I know prior to that game you had a few guys that were kind of out and just not quite fully healthy, and then naturally you're going to get some bumps and bruises. Can you just talk about kind of the health of your team entering this week?
Yeah, I think we're not in bad shape. Austin Brawley's going to be out for a while. He's got a foot. He has not redshirted in the past, so I think our hopes are that maybe we'll be able to get him back at the end of the year for like the last 3 regular season games is our hope, so he'd be able to still preserve his redshirt year but still come back and play. We expect Sean Miller to be back this week. He should have a full practice today. He was out last week. Still up in the air. Agu is not back yet, so I think that would make him, he's probably going to need a week once he gets back to get going. So, he's going to be out for this game. But I'm optimistic maybe we can get him back in the country by the end of the week so he could play next week.
On the Brawley front, I mean, he's a guy that, team captain. He had more experience in this defense than probably anyone. Can you just talk about the challenges of replacing a guy like that?
Well, I think we get, 2 things. We got to improve our communication on defense, and I think we got to do a better job as coaches. If you don't have great communicators, you got to simplify it so there's less communication. So I think it's a combination of both of those things we have to do. I thought Drew's speech has really come on. He missed some time during camp with a concussion, but he was able to come in, the last week, 10 days, and ended up beating out Aaron Smith for the backup behind Brawley. So he'll start, but A2 as we call him, Aaron Smith will rotate in at that spot. I think we'll be all right, but we got to focus on getting on the same page. And if we're struggling with that, then we can't give them 2 options to call it different ways. We got to call it one way, and this is how we're playing it, because that a couple of the big plays were that where we're not making the best call or not getting on the same page in coverage.
So, I mean, you've been practicing in this stadium for 6 months now. I mean, you've coached a game with UNM, but I mean, how excited are you to just finally get out there and play a home game in this stadium?
I'm excited. Hopefully I'm smelling green chili as I walk into the stadium. Hopefully I'm seeing all those flags, all those New Mexico flags hanging up there. And Hopefully our students are loud as hell behind the other team's bench. Don't cross the line, but I hope they go right up to the line, before they cross it, heckling those guys and making a difference in the game. So I'm excited. And again, I hope people, come out, because I think they, to me, New Mexico, this is a prideful, gritty state that's got a lot of tough people. And I hope they see a team that kind of represents them the way we fought against Michigan. It wasn't maybe always the prettiest, but we fought our ass off and we were gritty and tough. And I hope that resonates with the people and they turn out to show us. And, I'm not lost on it. We got to give them a win this week to give them something really excited about, and hopefully a win that looks really good so that they want to keep coming back to support us.
What do you think this home game will mean to the fans that do show up?
I think we're going to give them a good show. We're going to play our ass off. We're, we got to play. We got to improve from how we played last week against Michigan, against an opponent who we have a lot of respect for and is solid. And I told the team, obviously we lost to a team from the Big Sky Conference last year at New Mexico. The last two times I've coached in games that were Mountain West versus Big Sky, the Big Sky team won. So there's no gimmies in football. We got to go earn it and take it on the field. And just like our players were excited to go play at Michigan, I'm sure their players were more excited to play at UNLV than they were at Southern Utah, and probably going to be more excited to play against us than they were against Southern Utah. So we got to expect that we're going to get that team's best effort coming in here as well. So we got to put together a good performance, and I think hopefully that will lead to increased attendance as the year goes on. It's not going to be too hot, which is good. I was worried it'd be 100 degrees, but I think it's high 70s. Can't beat that.
And you mentioned throughout the offseason that some of these games that you guys have at the beginning of your schedule against some of the Big Ten teams are massive opportunities for you and your team. You just went through Michigan. Do you feel like your team took advantage of the opportunity?
That's a good question. I don't think we squandered the opportunity. Obviously, I don't think we completely capitalized on the opportunity, but I think we didn't embarrass ourselves with the opportunity. So, we're fortunate we get another chance at a Big Ten team in a couple weeks, but that's not our focus right now. Our focus is all on Idaho State.
And that trick play that Jack Lane had on that first touchdown, it went viral, and people were talking about whether the snap was supposed to be clean or not. Was that intentional?
Yeah, and Jack wasn't in for that. It was the quarterback behind was Lobstein. I say his name wrong all the time. Lobstein was in there for that, and we snapped it. Our aiming point for the snap, ideally, we'd want the ball to hit at the shins of the running back. And you see the running back, he almost gave it away too much. I'd rather have him have his hands here. You can see his hands are like here waiting for it. But I tell them I'd rather have you miss low than high, because what you don't want on that snap, if the snap hits him up here, then the linebackers and everybody sees that. When the ball is low, then they don't see it. They just think it's quarterback sneak. So you don't want the defenders on the other side to see the ball, so you'd rather have it on the ground than have it high.
And then was that like trick play in the back of your guys' pocket the entire time you knew that was going to happen at some point in the game?
We had it ready. Now, it's a very unique trick play. I mean, you can only, it's not good on 4th and 2. It's only good on like really a 4th and 1 when they're selling out. We'd practiced it for a couple weeks. I knew we wanted to go for it there because we had to have chances to get a touchdown. So on 3rd and 2, Slice knows that one. That one's such a high risk, high reward play. He asked me on 3rd down what I thought about that. I said if it's 4th and 1, let's run it. And I was hoping we still got the first down on 3rd and 2, but we ended up 4th and 1. If we get no gain, you got to have the threat of a sneak. So if it's 4th and 2, 4th and 3, that play doesn't work. It's only a 4th and 1 play. But we had it up there, and that's one you want to get. And like our analytics company kind of grades me every game on stuff I did good, and they said part of the reason that was a good play is if you go for a 4th and 1 on Michigan at like the 9-yard line and get a first down just running it, 1st and goal at the 8 against Michigan's hard. You have a condensed field. It's tough to run it in. So it's a really good play to use in that situation. It's different if you're at the, 1st and goal at the 3 or 4 is a lot different than 1st and goal at the 8 or 9. Those are tough to get, especially against a really good defense. So it was good to kind of get all the way in the end zone with going for it on 4th down.
So you guys completed a pass on the sidelines that would have been overturned with replay, but you guys were at the line and got a snap off. That's
by design. Whenever we have a play that we think is close, we go right on the ball to run it to try to limit their time to look at it. So that was by design that whenever we have one close by that. I didn't even see the replay. I didn't see the TV copy. Did it look like he was out on TV? He didn't catch it? No. But that's exactly how we want to do it. You don't give him time to look at it.
And that's not necessarily that easy to do because you got everybody running the line and you risk false starts and stuff like that. So obviously that's been something
that's something Coach Slice does a great job of practice in that situation. We even today we're have about a 5-minute period where we're just running tempo plays on air. And again, because of those things, it's not even. You're hoping a lot of times running those plays where the defense isn't set, so it's not even important usually to have a scout team in front of them. It's the timing of making sure we're getting lined up fast, everyone's set, everyone gets the call. We call those one-word plays, where one word tells players everything. It tells them where to line up, it tells them the play, it tells them the snap count. It's a signal to the quarterback, and we can say it verbally now because we got the helmet communication, and then he yells it out and we go. So that was a well-executed play by us.
I'm going to follow up on the trick play stuff. That's the only one in the playbook, right? No more trick plays, I'm sure.
No, we ran a reverse, but only went for like 4 yards. They were pretty fast. We didn't block it great.
Do you obviously you've done some trick plays in the past, and you're somewhat known for it. Is that more a feel game to game, or moment to moment in the game, or do you go into a game knowing I'm going to do 1-2 trick plays this game? Or
yeah, I think we kind of look at every team, what they do defensively, and we kind of have a bank of trick plays, and then out of that bank we look at, all right, this game, we can't really practice and execute every one at a high level every week. So what are our 4 trick plays that look good against what they do, and we're going to rep those this week. How can we tweak one? That one, the fakes, we call that play Beaver. That one is so unique. Like, we can't run that again this year. It's the formation, everything's too dead of a giveaway. That's one, we hadn't run it in 4 years. 2021 was the last time we ran that play. So you have something like that once you run that you can't run again. You have other ones where maybe you run it once and now you're going to tweak a formation or change the personnel to make it look different, motion to it to try to hide it. But I think they're fun. I think the players enjoy them. I think they we practice them a lot, so they kind of become just like a normal play. So I think you build the confidence in the play that this is going to be good against anything, no matter what they do. Because I know even like Coach Slice said, like when the initial look when Lobstein got under center, he's like, this doesn't look great. And I'm like, all right. He's like, do you want a timeout? No, we're good. Let them lay the trap, let them come down, and it'll open up.
So as we and fans are certainly getting to know you as a coach, that shows a sign of aggression, your willingness to take shots like that. There was also the timeout. I'm curious if that timeout was a sign of aggression that you would normally do. Are you going to do a 3rd and 14 timeout like that again?
Yeah,
or is that just an in-the-moment thing?
No, our analytics team told me I was too aggressive there, being an underdog. So that's one I probably regret. But I'd rather, if I'm going to make an error coaching, I'd rather have it be a aggressive error than another error. And again, I think a game you're favored maybe in 3rd and 14, you should call timeout there. But it was more so, they had us, even if we forced a punt, we would have had, a minute and some change, and that would have been tough duty to, drive and score, against their defense. So I think that was their thought of why they really wanted it to be almost hopeless for them. 3rd and 20 where they had no chance to convert. So I think that was one where I was a little bit too over aggressive in the game plan. But, we're going to be aggressive.
So there were, a couple of times where Lobstein came out. I'm just kind of curious, how many packages do you have for him, and how much of that is more so situational versus you just want to get him out there?
They were all situational, and we want to use him, and I think it's it helps when you can use your quarterback some in the run game. But I'm not really excited about adding hits on Jack Lane, so it's a way we can kind of use the quarterback in the run game without putting wear and tear on your starting quarterback. And, I also wanted, James, I don't think played a snap on offense last year, which concerns me. Like your backup quarterback, you don't want all of a sudden, week 6, knock on wood, you have an injury, and now the quarterback, the first time he's ever going in is now he's running the show. So I think this is good because it gets him, in the flow of the game. He's been in there with the guys. He's been there in the huddle. I think that's, I like to play your backups and have some rotations. And one of the big reasons is you want to have guys who are confident and ready, and you're closing that gap on the starters so that when you do have injuries, you don't have a huge drop off. You got to develop your depth. So I do think hopefully it never comes to the point where we Jack is out and we have to play James, but I think him having some game experience would pay off in that situation if it does happen, plus the wear and tear.
Obviously, Jack threw the ball 47 times, and you didn't have as many run carries, I think like less than 15 tailback carries. How important is it going forward to establish the run, feed the ball to the running back room going forward?
Very important. One of our, goals we have is to outrush the opponent. And, 200 for them, 50 for us. That's not a recipe to win football games. You're going to win very few football games where you get outrushed or 4-1. So we got to continue to stop the run better, but we just certainly have to run the ball better. And we got to use our backs too. We got to give them the ball. Now I thought it was great. I think all 4 of our backs that played in the game had receptions as well, so that's been great. And Jack is good at getting to checkdowns and things. And we got to design some things to get them the ball as well, just so we get them their touches.
You said you were kind of like a little bit disappointed in the sense of, you needed to create turnovers against Michigan. You only created like 1 turnover against Michigan. In terms of creating pressure against Michigan, what was your read on that and the success you guys had there?
We did at times. I think we had 2 sacks on them, but they're a pretty good O-line. I hope we could create a little bit more as the year goes on. I think we were, credit to them. I think we were probably expecting a few more screens out of them. We thought maybe, there were some calls we made on 3rd down that were a little bit more conservative, like trying to cover for screens. But I think what it really shows me is last year, and it's a different coordinator and, different systems. They had a lot of confidence in that quarterback. They weren't playing conservative. I thought maybe they would have, ran it on 3rd and 14 before the half, but they had confidence to drop back with him, and they didn't screen a bunch. So I think that's an area we certainly got to increase and get better at as time goes on. But I thought, Brett Carr, who was active, was around the quarterback. Xavier Slayton made a nice play on that 4th down. I thought there were times where we did get to the cue.
Went 3-0 against them, obviously, at Idaho. Do you still, and obviously a lot of former Vandals on this team right now too, do you still feel a little bit of a rivalry swell there, or is that completely kind of gone?
I don't think it's really a rivalry, but I enjoy beating them. It's like I said, Cody's a good coach. His dad is a good coach who's on his staff. His dad beat me the first year. His dad was at UC Davis, and they beat us pretty bad in the Kibbe Dome my first year at Idaho. No, but they're doing a good job. Good to have a home game. I've played them twice on the road, so we gotta have a good start and get after these guys and play really well. We can't give them life and encouragement. Again, they did a really good job playing. UNLV, I believe, was picked to finish 2nd in the conference, and they played their tail off, tied near the end of the game. So we got to be ready to go.
When you look at this offense, they throw it, just over 60%. Did that last year and on pace to do that this year as well too. And bunch up as well. What makes them difficult to defend?
I think this quarterback's a really good player. I really like Jordan Cook. I know it was a little goofy last week where they thought maybe he wasn't going to play, and then he got better and did play. But he really throws it well, is accurate. I think their receiving core is good. I think 14 stands out to me as a really big receiver, Mike Shilikoff. I thought he was good last year. And then the other big receiver, number 9, Tyson Nunnally. Both those guys are really good players, both big suckers, 6'4", receivers. And, they're all 10 personnel, so it's a lot different than what we've seen. That probably will change, how we have matchups with people and things. It's the same personnel package the whole time. They have done some things where they use 2 quarterbacks. They're using the kid that we recruited when I was at Idaho, Brett Spencer, who comes in as like a quarterback run guy. They still keep number 1 in the game when they do that. They kind of play with 2 quarterbacks. They split one of them out, so we got to do a good job with that package. At times they'll bring an extra old lineman in to be like a tight end in the red zone because they really don't have regular tight ends. So they do some different things.
I believe it was only 3 receivers against Michigan. Are you expecting? You mentioned Miller probably coming back this week, but are you expecting Blair and Jope to get a little bit more action this week?
We'll have to see how Katie looks. Katie's practicing, but he's just not quite full speed yet. He's not running well enough, really, I think, to take reps away from those other guys. He was ready if we needed him in an emergency last week, but those other guys stayed healthy and he didn't go. But I think Sean will definitely be in the rotation, and then we'll just see how Blair's looking.
On the depth chart, we're accustomed to seeing oars. At running back, you have 2 ands between Damon, DJ, and Deshaun. What does that mean?
I'm going to ask you.
Well, you use them all. You use them all.
Yeah. Maybe it's because we're going to play both of them sometimes because we do some two-back stuff. I don't know. So Scott Trey's the starter, and really DJ started last game because we started in two-back. So, and a part of that was as we looked at our opening plays, you kind of do want to reward your best players with who you're starting with and things. So, I mean, that kind of tipped me as we were going over our opening plays. I said, yeah, I think we should start in 21 personnel. I think that's our best, people right now. But, you just got to always build the game plan around the guys that are available that are our best guys.
When you're getting chirped at, it's hard not to chirp back, and we saw quite a bit of that Saturday. When that leads to pushing and shoving like it did the one time when you actually walked out on the field and told your guy, don't do that. How much of that do you tolerate from your guys during a game?
I don't like anything that leads to penalties, because, certainly we couldn't afford 15-yard penalties, whether, you get one on a PAT and now you're kicking off from the 20-yard line, or, there was one in the red zone we were close to getting that would push you out of field goal range. So we got to be better with that. And I thought that crew did a good job of officiating that game. And I thought the one thing, because I felt as the game went on, Michigan got a little chippy, and I felt like they were kind of trying to bait our guys a little bit. And I kind of talked to the officials about that. I feel like they're trying to egg our guys on, trying to draw some 15-yard penalties. And I thought they did a good job of, maybe not, calling stuff if both guys were going back and forth and just letting it go, or, they never called offsetting penalties, but, it really accomplishes the same thing if you're letting it go where there's no advantage gain because it was kind of back and forth both ways.
All right, last one.
Do you expect to keep rotating on the offensive line this week? Is that something that's going to kind of keep going, or because of maybe some of the protection issues that you guys had, you might cut down on that?
We'll see. I think we're still at the point there where we're going to compete during practice this week and see how guys did. But I would expect us to have some rotations in the O-line this week. I'd be surprised if we got in 1 week. To me, we'd have to really have to get to the point of having playing five guys, we'd have to have guys just in the game just really elevate themselves where they're playing at a much higher level than the other guys, and I didn't feel like we had that on Saturday to get to five guys. So we'll have some sort of rotation. What the rotation is going to be and who it is, I think still remains to be seen. Neville Brown, we're expecting to be a little bit more back. He was available, but he didn't feel great because he dislocated his thumb. It snapped back in, but he wasn't he was available, but was kind of more emergency.
All right, that's it. We somehow got through this without the White House announcement happening.
Rob, did you have one? I saw
one?
Rob.
You want one? All right, Rob got one.
Coach, you've talked about the big run plays and how it was probably run fits. That's something that's correctable. Maybe haven't talked as much about the bigger pass plays that happened. Were those individual players winning one-on-one battles, or were there some issues there as well?
Most of the big plays we gave up were in zone coverage. I think we got to do a better job of understanding down and distance. Like on the 3rd and 14 rep, you can see us jumping like a 5-yard route instead of getting depth. We also got to do a better job of reading the quarterback's eyes. The one thing as a young quarterback, I didn't think he was great at looking off his throws. Like the 3rd and 14, he's staring at the intended target the whole time, and our safety's not mirroring that. He should be, in zone coverage, we should be reading the quarterback's eyes and adjust to that. And then there was a little tackling and vice tackling post-snap. We kept the ball in front of us. They didn't really throw the ball over our heads. Maybe that one little tight end kind of fake play, they got a little over our heads. But, we got a vice. When they catch the ball, we got to make sure we're getting two tacklers to them, vicing in between us and getting guys on the ground better. Yeah, I think, that was a communication thing where we really didn't get in the call that we wanted to be in versus that formation. And, again, we got to do a good job of one of two things. We either got to make sure we get the players coached up better to get us in the right check, or we got to take it out of the players' hands. And we were all on the same page in that coverage, but it wasn't the ideal way to cover that formation.
Okay. I swear this is the last question.
Yeah, I promise too. Correct me if I'm wrong. It seemed like you guys ran, I don't want to say significantly, but a lot more zone than man in this game. I mean, was that a product of the game plan of we want to throw some things at Underwood and kind of get them uncomfortable, or is that, hey, we're going to play more?
I did want to try to keep the ball in front of us because I do think, it's disheartening to give up. You play man and you give up an 80-yard touchdown thrown over your head. Now it's probably just as disheartening to give up 50-yard runs, but I also thought, with zone coverage, you have more eyes on the quarterback, so you'd like to think you have better chances of getting interceptions on missed throws. Now, he didn't miss many throws to get interceptions on, but that was part of the game plan. I do think there'll be games, and a little bit just the matchups. Obviously those are not as good one-on-one matchups as maybe we're going to have in conference games and other games down the road. So I do think, that was a little bit driven by who we're playing.
We're done.
Okay, thanks, fellas.